Hello guys, this is Dark Fox Sage 2 and we are back with our new fanfic, which is What If Sakura Died in Front of Naruto Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and please subscribe to the channel. It motivates me to upload more fanfic like these for you all. Now let's start the fanfiction. Naruto slid his eyes open. Crescents of blue glistened tiredly as he slowly sat up. He had fallen asleep again. Waking up always gave him a strange, hollow feeling. He felt incomplete. Not only was Sakura gone, but so was Hinata. And Hinata had left on the same mission that had claimed Sakura's life. His worry was starting to expand within him. A week had already passed. But there was a sliver of hope hovering somewhere inside too, because he knew, for some reason, that Hinata would make it through. Naruto looked out of the window, and saw a familiar mournful grayness that consumed the skies. The air was bitter and felt thick. It would probably rain, he thought. The mist was already ensnaring him, even though he was inside. He was starting to see familiar patterns from that day. He suddenly laid his eyes on an item which he had forgotten. It was a ribbon. It caressed the table, adorning it with a vibrant redness. Like blood. Take care of it while I'm gone, I'm counting on you. He saw Sakura's smiling face, full of trust and hope. Naruto gritted his teeth with anger, before abruptly pivoting. He had to go that place. The black stone vanquished the gray haze. He had seen it so many times before, but it had never truly meant anything to him before now. He automatically gazed at the engravings. And found her name. He gently touched it, caressing it with trembling fingertips. Ever since Sakura died, he was building walls, because his heart was empty. He was afraid of experiencing loss again. And he could not find a new path. He found it hard to smile when she was gone. But Hinata was restoring him. And he was not giving her anything in return. She was acting selflessly. What was he doing? A familiar presence wrapped itself around him, piercing him softly. He was extricated from recurring memories. He looked up with strong eyes, silently greeting him. I thought you would be here, Naruto. He said, blankly. His ebony locks blew gently in the wind. Naruto's contrasting hair picked up the same cadence. Sasuke, you shouldn't have said those things to Hinata. Naruto said, straightforwardly. It was abrupt, but Naruto was angered, and had to express it. So you figured it out? Sasuke asked. There was no evident shock in his eyes. It was as if he was expecting it. Kiba told me, why did you do it? Naruto questioned, strongly. His voice was woven with anger. He was burning inside. Why? I was afraid she was trying to take her place. Sasuke admitted, after a few moments. Naruto narrowed his eyes. He wanted to unleash his anger against him, but for some reason, he let Sasuke open up, which was a rarity in itself. Really? You don't need to get more hurt than you already are. He added with an irritated tone. Do you really think that Hinata would do something like that? Naruto asked, more calmly. Naruto, can't you see it? He asked, instead of answering his question. See what? I can see her kindness. She has been a better friend than you have been lately. Naruto countered. Sasuke sighed. It was a deep, tired and regretful sigh. A thick silence enveloped them, and they just glared at each other. The wind was the only one whispering. Suddenly, Sasuke's eyes softened. Sorry, he said, quickly. Naruto could barely believe it, however, it was a step forward, for the both of them. Sasuke smiled cockily, but sincerity was evident in his onyx eyes. He had no energy to hold resentment against him. Besides, no matter how much he denied it, he needed him now, and wanted him to stay his friend. It's fine, Naruto said, with a forced smile. He hesitantly turned around to gaze at the memorial. Sasuke approached him and stood by his side. Now, the silence was enjoyable. And Naruto was glad he could share his pain. But for some reason, as he stood there, he could only think of Hinata. Naruto lay down on his bed, staring at the stretching ceiling, which was more fulfilling than the sky. However, it reminded him of his loneliness, because it was empty and blank. Breathing heavily, he erected his body, and stared longingly out of the window. The rain was falling gently, but no matter how hard it fell, it was not strong enough to wash away the pain that lingered. He only wanted Hinata to come back. Sakura was not. He walked through the rain, and it felt cold against his skin. Eventually, he came to the Crimson Bridge and felt his heart smile weakly. This place held so many memories. Out of all them, a recent one captured his mind. Naruto, when did you become a man? I sort of miss your endless shouting. Kakashi asked, with a flat tone. His silver hair matched the stars that were painted on the velvety sky. Naruto laughed boyishly, full of spirit. His smile was huge, as he leaned against the railing. Oh, I remember now. It was during that mission. Kakashi continued, and it felt like he was speaking to himself, until he gazed lazily at his former student. Naruto's smile vanished, and he gained a serious glow in his eyes. That will not happen again, Naruto said, with a strong voice. I know. We all understand. She does too, he added. His visible eye reflected the same emotion in Naruto's. Naruto had unwillingly let the Kyuubi take over him. The fiery energy had consumed him, and long tails of power had grown. He had felt it burn his skin, but it did not hurt. There had been so many swirling emotions within him, out of control. He remembered that, and he had injured Sakura in the process. The guilt had come in endless waves. She had forgiven him, and he had promised that he would never allow that to happen again. He had changed. It's all right, Naruto, Kakashi said. His eye curved, and Naruto could tell he was smiling behind his mask. Naruto returned his smile, warm and true. He was still bursting with energy, showing his happiness, and sometimes his silliness, but he knew, on that day, that he had matured. He was snapped out of his train of memories when he caught a glimpse of a small group of people approaching. He immediately noticed the familiar symbol of hidden leaf adorning their foreheads. Except for. Then he saw a pair of white eyes breaking the swallowing grayness. Hinata. She was all the way in the back. Her radiance was weak, and she was obviously exhausted. The others had passed the bridge already, and Naruto disregarded them and ran over to Hinata. Hinata, he shouted. She looked up, eyes wide. She had recognized that voice, which meant so much to her. She stopped. Naruto, unsure of what to do, stopped as well, and was a short distance from her. She was soaking wet from the piercing rain, and she had a few cuts, but nothing serious, he noticed. However, her eyes were dull and tense, and he realized that she must have overexerted them, for they were a vital tool for the mission's success. He felt relief wash over him, but the worry was not replaced. Thank goodness. Naruto, she whispered. Hinata smiled softly. Her small voice was filled with gladness, as she tried to take a step forward. Suddenly, her form changed. Naruto saw her knees give way, and his worry rose and collided immensely with his relieved thoughts, breaking them. Immediately, he approached her swiftly and caught her collapsing form, before she hit the ground. They both fell to their knees. He felt the impact affect him too. Her arms rested on his shoulders, and her hands curved around his neck, holding it gently. Naruto felt her uncontrollable shivering ripple against his skin. Hinata, he managed, before she interrupted him gently. I'm fine, she whispered, leaning her head against his shoulder. Thoughtlessly, Naruto put a hand on her back, the other on her head, and he embraced her. He thanked his lucky stars that she was all right as he consumed her warmth. He tried to give Hinata his as he strengthened his grip for a brief moment. He drew circles with his hands, glad to have her in his arms. That she was all right. Her shivering did not subside though, and his worry reawakened. Hinata, you need to, he said, gently, but again, her voice cut through. Naruto, the thing I wanted to say to you, I am in love with you, she whispered, pulling back so she could look into his eyes, and he got lost in hers. They were filled with tears. The rain did not fool him. He felt his heart skip a beat when the words sunk in. He forgot to breathe and react. I have been wanting to say it, but I was so afraid, I did not want us to change in. She said, and as every word came, her voice grew weaker. Naruto could not hear the rain anymore, he could only hear her words, which struck him. Naruto, she said, almost inaudibly. He felt her body give way, and her eyes gently closed. She rested against him. Hinata? He asked, fearfully. Naruto shifted her so that she was lying in his arms and her face towards his. He brushed some stray strands of midnight locks away from her pale face with affection. Naruto carefully held her in his arms as he stood up. He had to carry her home. He had to bring her to safety and warmth. Just like she did for him. He ran all the way to his place. Her family was absent, so she had no one to go back to. Waking up to emptiness was painful. He of all people knew that and could understand. Naruto gently placed her on his bed and wrapped her in the sheets. Her coils of hair spilled over the pillow, framing her face like a black halo. Not really thinking, he touched her cheek with her hand, and stroked it. It felt so surreal, that she was actually back, in his bed like this. He wanted to repay her. For once, he wanted to take care of her, and give her something back. She had been so supportive, and her smiles were so uplifting, even though he never truly smiled back. He lay down next to her, and thought about what she said, as he stared at her pleasant face. I am in love with you, she had said, so hesitantly, but her voice was strong then. He knew that she had gathered all her courage to say those words. What did he feel for her? He cared about her so deeply, and he needed her. His life seemed a little less empty when she was by his side. She made him feel complete. It was as if she had picked up all the scattered pieces that was him and put him back together again with utmost gentleness. He was so happy to know that someone loved him, the feeling of being loved, and he wanted to love her back. He could try to learn, to open his heart a little. He wanted to try. After some time, he suddenly felt her struggle slightly, and he was snapped out of his thoughts. He looked down at her face, and he saw her eyes gently open. Naruto, she whispered. He leaned over her, his eyes gaining softness. You could see the fondness in them. Gratitude swam within him. Hey, are you okay? He asked. She began to blush, and she slowly retracted, sinking into the sheets. Then, her eyes widened, and she gasped. She had remembered what she had told him. And she was afraid of his response. Naruto, she began, but when she looked into his eyes, she stopped. He was smiling, genuinely. Naruto understood why she was anxious. He knew how she felt. It is okay, Hinata, Naruto said, softly. He put his hand on her cheek. She could not move. I need you. I want to try, with you. Naruto whispered. He stared profoundly at her, and she could feel his breath on her face. I don't know what I feel for you, but I know that I want to try. He said, and Hinata was blushing mildly, unable to react. Stuck in the moment, and he seemed to be too, as he gazed down at her with kind eyes. Slowly, he lowered his face and their lips met. It was a soft, gentle kiss, but there were so many emotions streaming through it, that Naruto could feel it on his lips. It affected his entire body, as he felt his heart skip beats. Their tongues met and caressed, and she felt his hand stroke her cheek tenderly, before his fingers slid through her wet hair. At first it felt like heaven, unreal, but when she closed her eyes, reality sunk in. He felt it too. It had been so long since he had held someone like this. And it was Hinata. He could see her, feel her, with his strong arms. She was within his reach. Her skin was soft, and he felt trapped in her aura. And Naruto wanted to stay there. It was a moment of peace, and connection. He did not want it to fade away. He released the kiss, but only barely. He stared at her face, watched her flicker her snowflake eyes open. Her face was surprised, but soon gained a warm smile. His golden coils of hair tickled her forehead as he smiled back. I can wait for your feelings to be certain, she whispered, full of comprehension. Words were no longer necessary. He nodded with gratitude. Naruto snuggled closer to her, and he felt her body shiver. He pulled her close to him, holding her tightly with protective arms. Sometimes, Naruto would caress her face with gentle fingers. Soon, his eyes felt heavy, and sleep claimed him. Finally, he could sleep peacefully. Hinata watched him sleep. His chest rose rhythmically, and his face was serene. Thoughts began to stream through her. She was happy to know that Naruto was willing to try, finally opening up to her and letting her in. She realized though that she was risking her heart, when she was giving it to him. What if he rejected her? What if he would never let go of Sakura, and use her as a replacement? Hinata would just have to have faith in him. She knew one thing, that she was so comfortable in his arms, so warm and safe. She wanted to lie here forever, feeling his breath on her face, and his hand stroking her cheek. She wanted to be the one for him. Hinata sat on the bed, playing with her ebony hair pensively. She was thinking too hard. But she could not stop. Was there a day where she would not smile just by thought of his face, of the kiss that he gently placed on her lips? When she had woken up after that, he was there, smiling appreciatively at her. Her face reddened just by thinking about it. Hey, sleepyhead, he whispered, brushing a kiss on her cheek, carefully. His body was stiff when he leaned in, but he was getting more and more attuned to her. They were not used to this, definitely. But she felt happy, because he was beginning to open up. Good morning, she said, smiling weakly, with a blush. He got up, ruffling his golden hair with an eager hand. The first few days had been pleasant. Her body was in a great deal of pain though. He took care of her, made sure she was recuperating. It did not hurt as much when he was near her. In fact, the pain came in softer waves. He was attentive and she felt so overwhelmed. She felt like pinching herself sometimes, thinking that she was dreaming. He found it hard to be so close to her at night, but sometimes, he snuggled in with her, holding her. How are you feeling? He asked, sitting down next to her. He had not let her out of bed since that day. She had slept, and not woken up until much later. It convinced him that Hinata needed to recover completely, and in order to do so, she needed to rest her body. Especially her eyes, which when extremely overexerted, strained the body. Just like the Sharingan. I feel better, she said, whisperingly. A silence enveloped them. He looked away for a moment with a content look on his face. It soon shifted to a pensive stare, the blueness in his eyes strong. He looked hard for a moment. She stared at him, and as their eyes met briefly, he smiled weakly. It hit something inside of her at that moment. She sometimes could not believe that he was taking care of her, being with her like this, right here, right now. So, for once, she said what she felt. I can't believe that I am here, with you, like this. She said, hesitantly. She felt slightly nervous at that moment, but when he smiled again, her heart lightened. It is strange for me too, but I like it like this. He said. He moved closer to her, and put his hand on her neck, just like he did when they were talking in the meadow, and caressed it lightly. Thank you. She said, smiling warmly. The 5 days had gone by quickly. She smiled, and pulled the covers over her. Naruto originally slept on the couch, but sometimes, he would snuggle close to her, craving closeness, which she gave him. Even though Naruto was unsure, she was happy. It was a new morning, and when she woke up, he was gone. For a moment, she thought that she had actually awoken from a long dream, but then, she caught his smell in the air, and found herself in his room. And she could still feel his lips on hers from that day, the taste and touch of his mouth, stuck there. She looked around, blinking several times. Her ebony locks were draped over her shoulder, as she stood up. Naruto, She called, quietly. No answer. She slowly slipped out of the bed and approached the window, staring through the grayness that filled the village. Surprisingly, it was quite warm. The sun was barely peeking through the clouds, but a few beams caressed the golden grass, trying to give it life. She was hoping that it would completely break through. She noticed a flash of yellow and realized who it was. He was sitting on the porch, staring at the skies. Being there, he seemed to be just like the sun, vanquishing the grayness that surrounded him like a barrier. But in reality, he was not. He was trapped there, in his pain. Although he was getting stronger, she could see through him. He was sad, inside. Because he missed her. Was she healing him? She knew that she was giving him something. She wanted to reach him. Hinata changed into her clothes which he had brought over for her, and walked out of the house. Naruto? She asked, as she sat down next to him. He looked at her. Hinata, I didn't want to wake you, should you be up? He questioned, with mild apprehension. I'm fine, she said, timidly. A blush spread across her cheeks. The way he showed concern to others was always something she admired. What are you doing out here? She asked. Hinata was naturally concerned for him too. He unlocked the gaze between them and stared at the mist again. His eyes were vibrant, but at the same time, dull and tired. I just came here to think, man, the weather is bad. He said, distantly. She continued to stare at him, and encouraging words swirled through her head, but did not come out of her mouth. Naruto needed to walk off his pain, shed the weight that he carried on his shoulders. He needed to laugh again. She got up, hands clasping her legs devotedly. He looked up at her. Surprise was painted on his face. Let's go for a walk. The air is nice, she said, with a shy, but warm smile. She was bending over slightly, and her midnight hair was curtaining her face. He smiled weakly, not fully determined, but willing. Okay, he said, standing up. They walked by the outskirts of Hidden Leaf. Eventually, they came to an opening where a pond resided. Its glassy surface was glistening, as if it were harboring stars. It looked very cold, but that did not erase the warm feeling that swirled within Hinata. She approached it carefully, staring at it with awe. Look, it's so pretty, she said, gently. He smiled, and came over to her. It looks cold, Naruto added. He noticed how its blackness vanquished the cloudy haze. He crouched down slowly, and slid his fingers in the water. He retracted them, feeling a chill ripple through his skin. She was so captivated, that she wanted to walk in it. Persuading Naruto though, already proved to be difficult. Come on, she said, happily. She kicked off her shoes. He looked at her with a baffled look, but mimicked her deferentially. Hinata took his hands, with certainty this time, and led him to the middle of the pond. She giggled softly, feeling a faint coldness tickle her feet. It isn't that bad, she said, softly. Are you serious? This is cold, Naruto said, laughing slightly. She smiled shyly again, before bending down and splashing a little water on him. A few innocent drops splayed him. Hey, he shouted. He jumped back a little, releasing his firm grip around her hand. Hinata giggled lightly. He felt a mild happiness swallow him, as he tried to retaliate. He came closer to her and grabbed her playfully, gentle as to not cause her to fall. She felt her heart stop beating, and her body froze. He did too. They just stared at each other, white and blue intertwining. Their foreheads were touching, and she could feel his soft breath on her face. She got lost in his eyes, for they were bottomless. She did not realize it immediately, but their lips were suddenly one. She felt his lips stroke hers smoothly, and her eyes gently closed as reality sunk in. It had happened so fast, but now it felt like she was stuck, like things were progressing in slow motion. He put an affectionate hand on her neck, and it slowly made its way to her cheek. His thumb drew circles and curves, and she put her arms around his neck, feeling his golden locks. The kiss remained calm, but it grew stronger and stronger, until Naruto let go. Hinata continued to gaze into his eyes, as he moved his head slightly away from hers. Hinata. Thank you, Naruto said, smiling as brightly as he could. Somehow, it seemed forced, but she returned his. She had to be strong for him, so he could one day fully accept her. Naruto followed her home. She seemed to be fully recovered. It had been 5 days, so she had received enough rest. One could tell. Her aura felt strong. Thanks. I'll see you later, she said, hopefully. Sure, Hinata, Naruto asked, and she looked up at him with wide eyes. He approached her and kissed her placidly on the forehead. Again, his movements were stiff, but it felt nice. Thanks, he whispered, and he began to walk away, giving her a small wave. She barely raised her hand, because she did not want him to go. But she was smiling because he had been there, with her, so close. He had not walked very far, when he met a familiar face. Her blue eyes were glowing bitterly. Ino, he greeted, as she came closer to him. Naruto, how are you doing? She asked, plainly. He could not really comprehend the significance in her voice. Better, Naruto answered, trying to give her a believable smile. Have you gotten over Sakura already? Ino asked, abruptly. Naruto felt his heart jump up to his throat. He knew that Ino was direct and bold, but this took him completely off guard. What do you mean? He asked. There was anger in his voice. You've been with Hinata a lot lately. She continued, all knowingly. He sighed. Ino, despite her ups and downs with Sakura, was overprotective of her memory. He had understood that. He was the same. She's been helping me, helping you forget. She cut in. Hinata does not wish for that. Naruto countered, strongly. How can you be so sure? She asked. Naruto did not answer. He could not. He only stared at her with burning eyes. Ino sighed, realizing that she was treading on difficult territory. Just keep her memory alive, she whispered. And he realized that she was acting similarly to Sasuke. She was not only looking out for Sakura's memory, but for him too. She probably felt that it was her responsibility since his bond with her best friend had been so strong, which she had accepted. Ino was not exactly friends with Hinata either. They were too different. He parted ways with Ino, assuring her that he would never forget her. She did not look convinced, but he did not care. What was he feeling now? Hinata wants you to forget your pain. That means she wants you to block out Sakura. No, that can't be. He felt confused. And her face was streaming through his mind now. He did not want to forget Sakura, but he did want to move on. He did feel something for Hinata, but he did not understand that feeling. He wanted to try with her, but Sakura was holding him back. Naruto had felt at peace a few moments ago, but now everything was shattering inside of him. She woke up to the smell of blossoms. She heard noises outside, and smiled brightly. Her family had returned from their individual missions and duties. It felt nice to hear voices in the mansion again. She was pleased to see Neji, and to see him breaking through his forced smiles. It was still gray outside. The sun was unable to break through, so it was hidden beneath the thick clouds. Now, all she wanted to do was see Naruto. She did not know which direction their relationship was going in, nor did she know what they were now, but she knew one thing: she wanted him to hold her, no matter what. Her face was covered with a thin redness just by the thought of it. Not only that, she wanted to support him. She wanted to go find him. For some reason, she felt uneasy. She did not know why. It was swallowing her whole. Hinata ran all the way to his home, but when she knocked, there was no answer. She frowned. Hinata did not know where he could be. Then she thought about him, yesterday, sitting on the porch. He was staring at the skies, and it looked as if he were conquering the suffocating mist. But in actuality, that was wrong. He looked so trapped, and lost. She knew where he was, because he was lingering in her memory. He was there. Naruto stood by the memorial, gazing unreservedly at it. Hinata stared at his back, not knowing exactly what to say. She did not know if he had sensed her. She felt her soul bend, because he was still stuck. Gathering all the courage within her, she approached him cautiously. Naruto barely felt a familiar aura wrap itself around him. It was her, he thought. It had to be. Naruto, she whispered, timidly. The softness in her voice gave him goosebumps. He turned around slightly, acknowledging her presence with a warm, but broken smile. His eyes were shining. The wind blew by, scattering leaves around them. Hinata, how did you know I was here? He asked, focusing his attention on her now. I just knew, for some reason. Hinata answered, softly. He felt overwhelmed by her intuition. A thin silence swathed them, and he continued to stare at her. He noticed her uneasiness. She took a deep breath. This place, what does it give you? She asked. Naruto shifted his gaze away. He did not know the answer to that question, and Hinata seemed to comprehend that. It only makes you sad. She whispered, carefully. They stared at each other, for a moment that was true and honest. Do you want me to forget her? He questioned, abruptly. It came out harder than he wanted it to, he realized. She did not reply immediately. Is that what you think? She asked, instead of answering his question. Her voice was weak, not accusing. She looked hurt. Naruto did not like that. She did not seem shocked though, and her eyes were filled with a pure softness. She gave him one last look, before turning around, walking away, not quickly, just impulsively. He wanted to run after her. He wanted to. It only took him a few moments before he decided to. Watching her back was tearing him apart. Don't let her go too. He caught up to her and gently grabbed her hand. Hinata swiftly turned around, her hand slipping quickly out of his. He was surprised by her sudden movements, and that she was shocked to see him so close. She probably had not expected it, even though her eyes were stronger than his. Hinata, he said, softly. I don't want you to forget her. I just want you to be happy. She said with a raised voice. It was not really high, but considering Hinata, it was. Her eyes were closed, and tears were slipping out of them. I want to make you happy. She added, whisperingly. She looked at him now, and her white gaze was hesitant, but at the same time strong. He felt gratitude swim through him. He was hurting her, but she stood by him, no matter how closed and restricted he was. He did not want to hurt her, but he could not let go of Sakura yet. She had to know that. You do, Hinata. I don't want to hurt you, but, he began, but she intervened. I can wait. I can. But please, let me in, okay? She said, pleadingly. Her voice was soft though. She was always soft. He had to try and let her in, because Hinata deserved it, after all she had done for him. Okay, he said, determinedly. His stare was firm and she felt it pierce her soul. The world stopped at that moment. Naruto was shaking from pure emotions, as he brought his hand to her cheek and leaned his head close to hers. Briefly, their lips met. It was soft and gentle. She was hesitating slightly, and he could feel it. He released the kiss, and stared at her lament face. With a tender finger, he wiped away a dancing tear, and gave her an appreciative smile. She gazed at him now, placing her hand on top of his that still resided on her cheek. I do care about you, Hinata. So much, I want to try. Just give me time, he whispered into her ear. She nodded, and her eyes were sucking in the moment, trying to understand. She was so willing. And he was lucky. I am sorry, Hinata. When he was holding Hinata, he thought he could see Sakura, standing in the fields, watching him. When he blinked, she was gone. He looked down at Hinata, who was burying her face in his shirt. What? I did not just see her. No. He felt his heart sink, and beat wildly. He was torn. He shook the thought away. Let's go, Hinata, he said, taking her hand. Let's try and move forward. He squeezed hers gently, and they walked away, together. Together. But he was looking back, and could not release his gaze. There was nothing there though. Two souls interweave. His is in pain, trying to move on, trying. Hers is patient, trying to heal his. He can fulfill her. She can mend him. But how long can she endure? How long can she wait? And how long will it take for him to break through and accept her? Naruto had fallen asleep. His eyes were open, but he did not feel awake. He felt alone, and it was swallowing him whole. Suddenly, Naruto felt a timid touch brush against his cheek. He turned his head, and met a pair of pale eyes, gazing at him warmly. That feeling of loneliness disappeared, and he leaned in and kissed her tenderly, stroking her lips with fondness. He slid his fingers through her midnight hair, before bringing her head close to his chest. He liked the way she was enveloped in a light so different from everyone else, that by comparison everything else seemed dark. The days were slowly getting better, and the sun was beginning to shine. Hinata, look at your hair, it's all messy. Naruto said, smiling appreciatively. She looked quizzically at him, before grasping a strand of hair and attempting to flatten it intently. It was really windy outside, and she was late, so she had ran all the way. Hinata blushed, and felt embarrassed. Naruto laughed slightly, before approaching her and smoothing it gently. He stopped and kissed her tenderly on the cheek. She giggled lightly. Hinata was trying to reach him. He did not seem so far away anymore. Are you okay? She asked, sitting down next to him and patting his back gently. He was sitting in a field, staring at the sky. The sun was setting. Yes, he said, giving her a weak smile. Come on, she said, standing up and offering him her hand. He looked at it, contemplated for a moment. It seemed strange, because it was figurative. This picture. She was helping him up. On his feet, so he could move forward. He smiled, and took it. She felt like they were moving forward. But in the back of her mind, they were stopping. One day, Hinata arrived at her home after staying with Naruto. Her father's face was stern as she entered the main room. Her gaze did not falter, but she felt tense. Where have you been, Hinata? He asked. She looked away. Her nervousness turned into mild fear. Her eyes were unable to betray what she felt inside, no matter how hard she tried to remain strong. She did not know how her father would react. But his eyes could see beyond lies. She gathered all the courage within her. I have been with Uzumaki Naruto. She answered, obediently. Surprisingly enough, he stayed calm, even gaining a look of sympathy. How is he doing after losing Haruno-san? He questioned. His tone was dark. Hinata felt her heart sink. He is improving, she said, simply. He nodded. That is good to hear. I did not know you two were close acquaintances. He admitted, approaching her. Hinata, for once, did not feel compressed. Just say it. We are seeing each other, father. She said, with a certain voice. He stopped, eyes widening slightly. For a moment, she thought that he was not feeling anything. If anything, anger. I would forbid you to see him, for he is not suitable for you. He paused. Hinata braced herself. The last thing she needed was someone like her father to block Naruto out of her life. Both Sasuke and Ino were doubtful of her. She would not let that shatter her, but when it came to her father, it was different. But you are a woman now. And he is a man. He said, seriously. Hinata's eyes widened. Was he acknowledging her? And Naruto? You have become strong. He whispered. She could hear every word, feel them piercing her, softly. Father. She managed to say, for she was struck. Found it hard to believe. You acknowledge him, Neji acknowledges him. Therefore, you have my permission and support. He said, smiling warmly. Thank you, father. She said, bowing politely. It was stiff, but heartfelt. She gratefully smiled at him, without restraint. Hinata was so happy. She could not believe it. After traveling with her father, their relationship had blossomed. Also, Naruto and Sakura were infamous and great ninja, and he respected them. This was something she had forgotten. In the hallway, she suddenly met Neji. They stopped, stared at each other with the same eyes. Good evening, Hinata-san. He said. She felt her happiness blossom within her, and impulsiveness took over her prudence. She approached him and gave him a quick hug. It was brief, but Neji felt the warmth radiating from her, and the gratitude. Thank you, Neji-ne-san. She said, smiling at him. What is this all about? He asked. Father allowed me to see Naruto. Did you? She began, and as he nodded with a cunning smirk, Hinata's gratitude grew even more. Neji became serious. Our family has to change, and this is one step further to accomplishing that. We have to trust each other, and he understands that. Neji said. Hinata nodded determinedly. I trust you, Neji-ne-san. She whispered, with a soft voice. And at that moment, they did gain a mutual understanding. Neji's smile radiated in spoken words of trust. Naruto was training, and even before he started, he had decided it would be intensive. Pearls of sweat ran down his face, as he continued executing strict push-ups. When he could not take any more, he swiftly stood up. Something hit him then, as he stared unfocusedly at the trees that caged him in. He thought he could see a flash of pink. The wind sort of entranced him. Then, suddenly, he saw her. What are you doing, silly Naruto? She asked, smiling brightly. The light mockery in her voice was heartfelt, and her eyes were glowing warmly. There was a thick aura of purity surrounding her. Sakura, he mumbled. He could not believe his eyes. They had to be deceiving him. He blinked several times, before she gradually faded away, only her smile imprinted in his mind. He sat down, resting an arm on his knee. He was breathing heavily, and felt tired, but all he could see was her. And it revitalized him, no matter how confused he was. If he told Hinata about this, it would hurt her. No, he was hurting her already. His feelings were uncertain, and he was stuck. He did not know if she deserved that. She had been so kind to him, opening a path for him, and guiding him, with a soft hand. He had still not learned to comprehend his feelings towards her. They were growing stronger, but the stronger they got, the more confused he became. Can't he just move? He wanted her, but he did not know if he could have her. She approached Naruto with a warm smile. In the back of her mind, during the past few days, there had been a veil of uncertainty around him. She hoped that the good news would cheer him up. Guess what? She said, as he closed the door. He turned and looked at her, curiously. My father sends his regards, and supports us. She informed, happily. He was happy for her, as he pulled her close. That is great, he said, pleased. His movements were becoming smoother. No longer stiff and hesitating, more welcoming and warm. She liked that, but she did not know what he was feeling inside. Naruto embraced her tightly, and surprisingly, she fit right against him. Hinata leaned her head against his chest. Again, he felt a harsh guilt expand inside. Therefore, he strengthened his grip around her, so she could not see his face. He was afraid that she would understand. She usually did. He did not want her to know that he was in doubt. He did not know why, he just was. He did not want to be in doubt. He wanted to try with her. So he put a finger under her chin, and kissed her tenderly. Their lips and tongues intertwined, and her lips felt soft against his. At that silent moment, he searched within himself, trying to explore his feelings. He did not know if he could be with her now. Hurting her like this. His smile hiding lies. A few days later, Naruto was walking determinedly forward, ready to execute his duties. Coincidentally, he saw a girl, hurrying in the opposite direction. They stopped as their paths met. He smiled weakly. Hey, Hinata, he greeted. She smiled, gently grasping his hand. You have a meeting, right? She asked. He nodded. And you have guard duty? He questioned, squeezing her hand. She said, looking slightly disappointed. She wanted to talk to him more. The people simply drifted by in her eyes. She could only see him. But something felt different. I'll see you later then, okay? He said, abruptly letting go of her hand. She brought it to her chest, and nodded with agreement. She felt him brush past her, and she could not move immediately. When she felt his presence diminish, she kept on going, contemplating their brief meeting. He seemed so far away. Later, they met up and went for a walk. The breeze was cool against his skin. The moon was aloft, brightening the sky. He held her hand, consuming the warmth she radiated. She glanced at him and smiled. It was a smile waiting for something. When they came to the bridge, they stopped. Naruto leaned against the railings, staring pensively at the peaceful water. Suddenly, he saw Sakura again. Standing on top of the water, she glowed like a star and her pink hair fluttered in the wind. His eyes widened. She looked like an angel, untouchable and radiant. Naruto, what's the matter? She asked, carefully. Her smile withered and she looked at him with concerned eyes. He gazed at Hinata, and when he looked back, Sakura was gone. Hinata had obviously not seen her. Naruto was unable to say anything. He just stared at her, his sapphire eyes empty. The silence was stretched, but he soon broke it. Hinata, he began, but could not find himself to finish. Hinata did not say anything either. She was not persistent and questioning. She would be gentle and quiet, despite how many questions swirled through her mind. He admired that. She was so patient. Naruto sighed. Her face made him say what he partially felt. I can't, he said. She remained calm, but he could not ignore the mild fear blooming in her eyes. I am hurting you. I need some time to think things through. He whispered. Half of it was a lie. He was seeing Sakura, making him doubt. Tears were welling up in her pale eyes. Do you doubt us? She asked, quietly. No, I doubt in me. That is why I need time. He answered. What is really wrong, Naruto? Tell me, please, she said, comfortingly placing a hand on his arm. Her voice was gentle. I am sorry, Hinata. Naruto whispered. She took a step back, her hand slightly shielding her body. And it hurt so damn much to see her tearful face. I don't care if I get hurt. I want to be with you. I want to help you. Hinata admitted, with a low tone. She was being brave. But I care if you do. I want to be with you, but I can't do that knowing that I am hurting you. He said, reaching out to her. She let his hand rest on her frail shoulder, but she gently moved away, eyes closed tightly. Hinata, he uttered. The softness in his voice was penetrating. She was taken aback, even though she had sensed something strange in the air. Things had been progressing so well for them. But when he was in doubt, feeling Sakura's aura, how could he be with her when it only gave her pain? It hurt him too, to see her pleasant face, cracking. I don't care. I just want to love you. She whispered, and the tears were dancing freely down her cheeks. She shook her head. And she ran. Naruto felt her pass by him, even a strand of ebony hair tickle his face. He felt his body glued to the ground, immobilized. His eyes were wide. Then, he knew he had to move. When he turned around though, she was gone. The wind replaced her presence, but it did not give him a warm feeling, only a coldness piercing his soul. He began to walk. He would go to Hinata tomorrow, because she needed some time to digest things, and him too. One question swam through his mind now. Was he doing the right thing? Hinata sank into the bed. She could not stop crying, no matter how hard she tried. She buried her head in the pillow, thinking that it should have been Naruto's rising chest, but it was her stupid pillow. Yes, she had expected to be hurt. It was not shocking. She was hurting when Naruto stared longingly in the distance. She was hurting when he seemed so far away. She was hurting when Naruto gave her a broken smile, knowing that he was hiding something and not confiding in her. But she was happy when he held her in his protective arms, when he stroked her cheek and looked at her with fond eyes. She was happy when he kissed her strongly, feeling his soft lips against hers. She was happy when he gave her encouraging words, complimenting her, and giving her strength. Did that not matter? The joy overweighed the hurt. But the hurt was all she was feeling now. Was it worth it? What was gained? What was inflicted? Life is about letting go, or holding on. Some people slip, others grasp. It takes two to hold on. If one hand slips away, the other hand is forced to let go. Some just decidedly glide away from each other. One can try to hold on, but it usually does not work. It is a mutual thing. Sometimes, though, they find their way back to each other, and hold on tighter. He lets go to search within himself, because his grip is hurting her, even though he wants to hold on. She is forced to let go, but she reaches out her hand, waiting for him to take it when the time is right. Naruto woke up and automatically turned his head. His hand slowly swayed down the bed. He was expecting to feel someone beside him. It was just natural. No one was there. She wasn't there. Naruto narrowed his sapphire eyes. Two people he cared about were not by his side. One of them had gone against his will, the other he had pushed out of his life. He did it for her though, because he only caused her pain. When Naruto figured out things, he would go back to her. Figure out what? Why he doubted in himself. Why uncertainty took over when he saw her face. Why he could still see Sakura. Hinata sat by her window, staring longingly at the distance. She brought her knees to her chest and hugged them. It was cloudy. The sun had vanished. Where had it gone? The thickness of the clouds was almost suffocating, and it was so gray. No rain yet. However, she was expecting it, because she could sense it in the air. He sat on the soft grass, letting a sigh escape from his lips. His golden locks fell over his face as he lowered his head. Naruto, he heard a voice say. He raised his eyes, and saw a friend. Choji, he whispered, smiling as strongly as he could. When Choji was around, he could not help but grin a little. His presence was so warm. You look kind of blue, what's on your mind? Choji asked, sitting down next to him with a concerned look. Naruto remained quiet for a moment, unsure of what to say to his friend. He felt rather closed, which was rare. Is it about Sakura? Choji asked, carefully. Yeah, but it's also about Hinata. Naruto began, quietly. Choji did not say anything. The rare silence between them stretched, before Choji patted him quite hard, yet amiably on the back. Hang in there, Naruto. He said, flashing him a bright grin. Naruto smiled back, warm and true. He knew that Choji was not the comforting type, but his encouragement skills were overwhelming. He did feel soothed though, no matter what. Thanks, Naruto said, staring strongly ahead. Hinata bowed before her leader respectively. The Hyuga raised her head and watched Tsunade nod, before displaying several scrolls. Then, her brown eyes glowed with a strange graveness. Mission for you, Hinata. She said, after releasing a sigh. Hinata nodded as she outstretched her hand and grasped one of the scrolls given to her with politeness. I have a bad feeling, so be careful. She said, gently. Hinata nodded and bowed again, before stepping out of the office. She let a deep breath escape from her lips, before carefully examining the scroll which consisted of the mission's details. For some reason, she felt nervous, as she raised her head and stared contemplatively at the blank ceiling. Hinata felt her heart beat quickly, and everything around her seemed to fade away. She held the scroll by her heart. Hinata was afraid that the mission would split her and Naruto fully apart. As they were now, she was at least close to him, near him. Now she had to forcefully go away. Despite everything, she was so saddened by his abrupt decision, that she felt like telling him was no point. It would only give him more weight on his heavy shoulders. And lately, he had been shouldering everything by himself. Letting things out was not so easy anymore for him. She wanted to open up a way for Naruto, but it was very difficult for him to see that path, shining. Maybe leaving was a good thing, so it could open his eyes, and give him time and space. Naruto walked along steadily. His mind was drifting away, and he let his thoughts take over. Suddenly, he saw a pair of white eyes. She was sitting on a bench, eyes staring unfocusedly at the ground. She lifted her head slightly, naturally feeling a raw and familiar chakra wrap itself around her. With her keen eyes, she could practically sense anything. She fully looked up, and met Naruto's gaze. She moved so smoothly and delicately, it felt like everything was proceeding in slow motion. Again, he could see the hurt in her eyes. Hinata. He came over to her. She tried to give him a smile, but realized that it was futile and instead looked away, nervously clasping her hands. He understood that she was upset, and that he had to approach her carefully. Are you alright? He asked. She managed, with a small smile. She continued to stare at the ground. Naruto noticed her uneasiness. Hinata was trying to pretend that everything was alright, when the circumstances were different. Trying to be strong. I'm sorry, Hinata. Just give me some time. He said, sitting down next to her. She did not answer immediately, and for a moment Naruto thought she was angry, but he knew that Hinata did not possess those emotions. Hinata, he whispered, and touched her cheek so that he could look at her pale eyes. They were wide and revealed everything to him. She was still only for a moment, before she gently pulled away, standing up and looking directly at him. Hinata held his hand, squeezing it tenderly. I was happy when I was with you. It is only now that I feel. She could not find her voice. She was trying to look strong, but Naruto could see the pain in her eyes. Naruto, I hope you understand this. She whispered, softly. She gave him one last saddened look, before letting go of his hand and turning around. She began to walk, slowly, because she did not know if what she was doing was right. Naruto abruptly stood up. Hinata, he called. She turned around, her hair swaying gracefully in the wind. I'll wait for you, Naruto. She said, with a weak smile. For the first time, she seemed so far away. The distance between them seemed unbreakable. At the same time though, there was a mutual understanding. They figured out that when the times come, she will take him away. He just had to say the word. He did not know how long they stared at each other, feeling the wind against his face did not even wake him up. Hinata broke their intense lock, and finally proceeded forward. Naruto, however, continued to stare at her, reaching out. Hinata. He was sorry for putting her through this. Maybe, separating himself from her only caused her more pain, and it seemed like it was getting to him too. However, he remained uncertain, and he was still seeing emerald eyes in crowds, and pink hair for a fleeting moment. But, another feeling crossed his heart. It felt like he and Hinata were saying goodbye. Not a prominent one, but it was there. Naruto walked endlessly through the streets, diving into his thoughts and trying to sort them out. It felt like he had done this already today. His head still felt heavy though. In fact, it felt even heavier than before. The grayness was growing darker and darker. Amongst the thick haze, he could see a familiar silhouette breaking it. He recognized it as Kakashi, and he greeted him with a small smile. He nodded softly back. Yo, Naruto. Kakashi greeted. Have you heard? He asked. Naruto narrowed his eyes with question. Many ninja have departed for a tough mission, including Hinata. He informed, seriously. What? Naruto asked, shock painted on his face. Instinctively, he looked around for eyes, a pair of snowflake eyes, but found none. He had just seen her. Why didn't she tell him? He felt confused. That was the only feeling that swirled within him. Not hurt, because he knew that her silent departure was well intentioned and reasoned. It did not shock him that she kept it to herself. Hinata was merely acting selflessly. After all, it was him who had craved separation, so she was just giving him that space. He lowered his head, finally letting the tenseness take over. He felt like running after her. He wanted to. He felt his heart being pulled to the gates, where she was. Naruto did not know why, but he wanted to run. Hinata turned around and stared longingly at the distance. She had been doing that often. The village was her view, and she wanted to see a certain someone chase after her. He was not there. It was all right though. She knew that what she was doing was right. If she was close to Naruto, it would only hurt her. Distancing herself from him while he sorted out his thoughts was something she needed to do. He needed space, and she needed to be spared. However, she still longed for his touch, his kisses, and his content smile. Naruto. She still felt that same warm feeling every time he approached her, and she missed that feeling already. She looked down, as she proceeded onwards, closing her eyes for a brief moment against the world. Naruto ran through the streets, running as fast as he could, so fast, he could recall stumbling and bumping into people. Maybe, if he was quick enough, he could catch up to her, manage to say, goodbye, and, be careful. A strange feeling dominated within. He feared for her, despite how strong he considered her to be. He did not want to let go of her like this. He could see the red gates breaking masterfully through the grayness, and he desperately searched for her, but she was not there. Naruto abruptly stopped, looked one last time, before reality sunk in. She had already left. Hinata finally looked up, after wiping away her weak tears. There was only a wall of gray covering the sky, but she realized something at that moment. Even though the sun may not shine every day, it was still in the sky. It was eternal. Whether it was behind the thick clouds, or behind the blanket of night, it was still there. She just had to look beyond. And of course, be patient. Hinata could manage. He was worth it. She knew that the sun would break through soon. Just like Naruto would. Naruto suddenly felt a single raindrop kiss his nose and he looked up. The rain grew quickly in quantity. It plastered his hair down as he stared at the empty path. He could not remember how long he stood there, gazing at the distance. Eventually, his heavy breathing ceased and he decided to go back. Home was the only place left to go back to now. He threw himself in bed, burying his head in the soft pillow. His eyes grew heavy, and he dreamed. Naruto was bathed in a warm light that seemed to consume the world around him. Everything was white and empty. He walked through the endlessness, looking around. Where am I? He caught a glimpse of breaking emerald. She was standing there, smiling. He was just like he remembered her, pure and true. However, she was veiled in an eerie aura that streamed from her. Sakura? He asked, stopping. He tried to move, but he found himself stuck in her trance. Naruto, I want you to forget me. She said, her smile unerasable. Her eyes were hard though. What? He questioned. Naruto was sincerely confused. Then, he suddenly realized. This is a dream, isn't it? He asked her. She nodded, coming closer to him. He still could not move. He began, but could not find himself to continue. He felt completely immobilized by her presence. She came closer, and touched his cheek. She felt real against him. He could not feel his touch though. If you look hard enough, you will find happiness. She whispered. What? He asked, gently. She gently pulled away, taking a few steps back. It is already there, she said, and her tone was determined. She was smiling brightly. And he saw solid tears breaking, and Hinata's smiling face, soft, welcoming hands and dark hair. It came so quickly, he could not even blink. The whiteness swallowed him. Then he woke up. Naruto gasped slightly, as he abruptly opened his eyes. He remembered every single detail of that dream. Hinata was. He got up, shifting so he was sitting on the ledge of the bed. She was. He could not feel Sakura's essence anymore. He stared at the ceiling, and it did not give him loneliness, but a feeling of longing, for her. Hinata. Hinata kept on walking, even though her feet felt tired already. All she could think of was Naruto. She looked up and stared firmly at the sky, feeling the calming rain against her skin. She suddenly stopped, gathering all her courage. Naruto's face made her stronger, so she tried to picture him in his mind. And they longed for each other, even though they needed the space and distance. Naruto stared at the wall, Hinata stared at the sky. All they wanted was mutuality. The wind felt nice against his skin as he stared off into the stretching distance. The sky was no longer a first priority. Lately, he enjoyed staring at the lovely scenery, which consisted of bright green and pink. The blossoms were beginning to bloom, decorating the sky with color. The clouds were still covering the sun in blue. He sighed. Several days had passed, and still no word from Hinata's group. Naruto was beginning to worry. It was only natural for him. The days they had been separated had been heavier than he ever imagined. When he decided to let go of Hinata for a while, he thought that the space would give him a better chance to think things through, and also to spare Hinata from being hurt. He was wrong. The longing grew stronger and stronger, and he slowly realized that his need for Hinata was vital. He felt empty without her, and that familiar feeling of loneliness began to swallow him. And she clearly said that she was happy with him, despite his uncertainty. What were his feelings for her? They were stronger than friendship at least. He wanted to try with her, meaning that he felt something for her. Was it love? He clarified his thoughts. He cared so deeply for her that he wanted her in his life. If he wanted to be with her, was another question. He did in a way, but he was afraid that if he lost her, he would just sink even more. Hinata was taking a small break, trying to catch her breath after they had been speedily jumping through the forest. They had discovered a stream, and decided to rest for a few minutes. She cupped her hands and gently washed her face. Somehow, she felt that her heart was not 100% in it. She knew that attending a mission half-heartedly was a negative thing, but she could not deny this feeling. The last thing she wanted was to drag down the team. Be a weight for them. The mission was relatively challenging. 3 missing nin had escaped from the prison outside of Hidden Leaf, and needed to be restrained at once. Locating them was one thing, capturing them was another. Their abilities were unknown to them. Naruto would have cheered her on, reassuring her that she would be okay. She knew that. Somehow though, his indirect encouragement was not enough. Especially when she considered their current situation and relationship. They were more than friends, less than a couple. It was quite difficult. There was only one thing standing between them from becoming one. His feelings. That is why Hinata needed to go on this mission. Maybe something would trigger inside of him. She hoped so at least. She slowly turned her head when she heard a something in the distance. Her group, which consisted of 6 including her, was not too far away. For some reason, she grew worried, especially for her almost ever constant partner, Kiba. He had reluctantly listened to her request for some space. Suddenly, Hinata felt a strange aura envelope her, making her shiver. When she felt it whip against her, she moved fluidly. She flipped and landed in the water, before gazing strongly at her newly arrived opponent. Are you also a Hidden Leaf ninja? The man asked, bitterly. She immediately took out her kunai for defense, and activated her Byakugan. Hinata knew she had to act quickly. The others could not be too far away. Then it hit her. Why was there only one enemy confronting her? Where were his comrades? The man seemed to notice her insecurity, and he rushed towards her. He was fast. Hinata barely managed to dodge, and felt something graze her skin. Already, her lack of motivation was pulling her down. Hinata grasped her kunai and threw it at him. The man blocked though. She felt him come closer. Her thoughts were broken. Instantly, she was caught in a dance with him. Hitting, punching, kicking, throwing, slashing. It occurred so quickly, but Hinata somehow managed to keep up. She was the one who conquered the situation by striking him hard in the gut. Hinata jumped away to create some distance between them, so she could gather her chakra and execute the gentle fist on him. He needed to be immobilized immediately. She braced herself, but was taken aback when her enemy displayed several sharp needles in his hand. See if you can dodge these, he said, with a snicker. Suddenly, a rain of needles flew towards her. She was forced to cancel her stream of chakra and alter it. Hinata had very little time to defend, so she decided that using her kunai was her only option. They came quickly in endless waves, but she deflected them, one by one. She hit them hard and consequently. There were so many, but they eventually ended, cluttering to the ground. Seeing this, she immediately prepared herself. She concentrated and focused her chakra on her fingers. Hinata rushed towards the man, and hit him piercingly in all the strategic places, so that his chakra flow slowed and shut down. She counted intensely inside of her, making sure she made no mistakes. Luckily, he had no time to neither block nor dodge. She gave him the final blow, and heard him groan with pain. He fell down, slowly. The escapee remained still. She sighed with relief, knowing that her opponent could ultimately not move. The protruding veins around her eyes diminished. She turned around. The man slowly raised his head and looked at her with strong eyes. "You might have got me, but you are in trouble too," he said, coldly. It was only then she felt a sting surge through her neck. She robotically brought a hand up and felt a small metal needle piercing through her skin. She gently pulled it out, feeling the pain gradually fade away. "That won't harm me," she said. "Don't be too sure. Those needles are covered with poison," he informed her, amused. She widened her eyes. "In a few hours, you will be dead," he said, harshly. Hinata had missed one needle. One single needle. She had not even felt it. Her heart started to pound with a mild fear, but now was not the time for her to be concerned for herself. She ignored him completely, and her feelings. Hinata took out a tough rope and tied him up, before going to locate the others. Hinata cautiously stepped through the forest, feeling a familiar chakra wrap itself around her. It was so gray, she felt like she was drowning in it. The green leaves broke through though. As she came to a wall of bushes, she heard some rustling, and prepared herself. He appeared. "Kiba," she said, relief woven in her voice. "Hinata. Thank goodness, you're okay," he said, approaching her with warm eyes. Akamaru was by his side, barking happily. "What happened?" she asked him, reverting to seriousness. "The enemies had cast a genjutsu, causing us to separate. When we took a break, we were all spread out. You were the only one by the stream. Initially, we were not too far away, but the distance between us seemed to stretch without us realizing before they ambushed us," he explained, carefully. Hinata nodded. "I understand. I was also ambushed, but I immobilized him after some effort, before seeking you out," she said, with a small smile. "Good job. We took out the others too, but one of us was severely injured. We have to return immediately. Transporting the bastards will be a bitch," he admitted, looking at the distance with hard eyes. Hinata discovered that her vision was already starting to weaken. She refused to be a burden, and forcefully sharpened her senses. Hinata shook her head. "Anyway, the team leader ordered us to rendezvous at the field in 10 minutes. Kiba informed. "Okay, let's go," she said, and began to lead him back to the stream. He followed her obediently. Hinata felt her body getting heavier, but she had to persevere, so she would not weigh down the team. She had to get back to the village successfully, so that she could face Naruto. "Naruto, you would do the same, wouldn't you? You and I are not so different. Would you carry me if I fell?" "Yes, you would. Because you, without knowing it, lift me up. Single quote. Always." Naruto was strolling through the empty streets. It was dark outside now, gray shifting to black. It was a raw and cold night, but the stars were bright. He had to clear his head again. Walking seemed to give him either peace, or made him open up his mind even more. He stopped when he felt a familiar chakra consume him. He smiled crookedly, and turned around to meet his face. "Are you following me or something?" Naruto asked, trying to sound humorous. He failed. Kakashi smiled for a brief moment, before immediately directing the atmosphere in a serious course. "Naruto, are you okay?" he asked him, deeply. Naruto narrowed his eyes, contemplating the question himself. He was not sure what he was feeling at the moment. Thinking too much caused him to lose his voice. Kakashi sighed. I know what's going through your head. Kakashi said. Naruto looked at him, not quite understanding him, but his words were drawing him in. What do you mean? The blonde asked, staring at him quizzically. You are finally recovering from her death. However, you have a guilty conscience, because you feel like moving on means you are forgetting her. So instead, you take a step back. He said, slowly. Naruto felt something awaken inside of him. Kakashi was opening a door inside of him. You feel like you don't deserve it. Kakashi continued. Naruto cut in. What? He asked, sharply. Happiness. Kakashi finished, cleanly. Then it hit him, abruptly. What Kakashi was saying was true. His teacher of all people would know what he was going through. Naruto was well aware that he had experienced loss, probably more severely than him. You get me, don't you? Naruto said. Kakashi seemed to push his question away, determined to finish, and gave him a hard stare. Naruto, you do deserve it. I know too well. Kakashi paused for a moment. Sakura too wants you to be happy. He whispered. Naruto was surprised by his teacher's rare consolation and deep advice. This was his other often hidden side. He smiled. Thanks, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto said, gratefully. His voice was thick. The affix was something he still maintained, because of his unspoken respect for him. Kakashi nodded, and slowly walked by him. No problem, he heard him say, before his chakra vanished instantly. Naruto smiled weakly, and looked up at the sky. The glowing moon reminded him of Hinata, and he wished for her to come back, so he could hold her in his arms and tell her that he was willing to take a step forward with her. If you look hard enough, you will find happiness. That is what she had said. Is Hinata what he needs to see? Happiness. Hinata and her team walked in a steady line. They had delivered the escapees successfully, and were now on their way back to Hidden Leaf. Kiba was right in front of her, giving her worried glances from time to time. He was starting to notice. Her legs were dragging, and her eyes were hollow and dull. Hinata was forcing herself so hard, that it probably shone from her. Are you okay, Hinata? He asked. Hinata could barely hear his words. The darkness seemed to be like fluid. She wondered, if she touched it, would it ripple? She felt her body give way, but no pain came. She had not hit the ground. Kiba caught her, and wrapped secure arms around her frail form. Hinata, what's wrong? What happened to you? He asked, angrily, but the worry was evidently there. The whole team halted and the medical nin came over to them. Hinata could only see blotchy colors now. She felt a gentle hand examine her. She did not want this to happen. She only wanted to see Naruto. In the end, she was not strong enough. She's poisoned. She needs treatment immediately. It's amazing that she has kept on going up until now. The young man said, seriously. Kiba snarled and gathered Hinata in his protective arms. He had to bring her back to Tsunade, and to Naruto. I'm taking her to Hokage-sama. He shouted, jumping on Akamaru's back and commanding him to run as fast as he could. They rushed rapidly through the trees, and for Hinata, everything was going in slow motion. Black blotches covered her sight now, nothing else, and she slowly slipped into unconsciousness. Her last thoughts were of Naruto's smiling face. His true face, without restraints. Naruto sat patiently at his empty home, waiting for her to come to the door, knocking shyly and greeting him with a blush and warm smile. Hinata, I think I need you after all. His thoughts were shattered when he heard an urgent knock on the door. He automatically stood up and rushed over to open it. The man in front of him was breathing heavily. Kiba, he blurted out, confused. He knew that he and Hinata were partnered up. Worry hit him hard. Naruto, I have something to tell you. He said, trying to catch his breath. What is it? Naruto asked, concerned. He never hid it. Not with Hinata. And he somehow knew that it had something to do with her. Why? The mission was a success. However, Hinata was. He began, and again exhaled deeply. She was poisoned. He finished, heavily. Naruto's eyes widened, and the only thing that he wanted to do now was rush over to her. Make sure she would surely pull through. He had to. He could not lose her. He cursed inside of him. Naruto was burning, and it was reflected in his eyes. I have to go to her, he said, quickly. Kiba confusedly followed Naruto as he walked through the door without even locking it. Naruto. Wait, Kiba said, loudly. Naruto turned around, and all the emotions that were swirling inside of him were colliding. I can't wait. She might die. I can't lose her. Because he shouted, angrily, but his voice eventually weakened when he suddenly realized. Because I love her. Calm down, Naruto. Listen to me, Kiba said, reassuringly. Naruto's unfathomable eyes drifted over to Kiba's face. She is being treated by Tsunade, and I am certain she will pull through. He continued. Naruto just wanted to run to her. He was consuming everything, his feelings, the situation. He did not know what to do, except go to her. Go to her then, you idiot. He heard Kiba say, and he was smiling confidently, despite the fatigue in his face. Naruto nodded strongly, before moving his feet, quickening his pace. Hinata was going to be okay. Apparently, she had shielded the poison from spreading to her vital organs with her chakra. With Tsunade's promising treatment and Hinata's strength, she would most likely pull through. It did lessen the worry in his beating heart, but he could not help but feel concern. He had lost Sakura, so he was taking no chances. He would not lose hope, but his worry would only disappear when she fluttered her snowflake eyes open and smiled sweetly. The dark room was in some way eerie, as he slowly approached the bedside. The only light was from the glowing moon, shining through the window and bathing Hinata. Her face looked peaceful. During her absence, he had longed for her. He had wanted to hold her in his arms. Everything about her was comforting. Just having her near him truly gave him peace. So here she was, but it was not the way he wanted to see her. He could not do anything. Not even. But Naruto felt unreserved. His walls were coming down. Even though she could not feel him, he could feel her. He wanted to feel her against him, touch her soft skin. Naruto could not fight his feelings anymore. He sat down on the bedside, and slowly wrapped his hands around her back and head. He brought her close, letting her upper body lean against him, gently sliding his fingers through her ebony hair. It angelically fell down her shoulders. Naruto held her, so carefully, but he could not help but amplify his embrace as he felt a tear slide down his cheek. He lowered his head and buried his face in her neck, trying to consume her warmth, so that he could stop weeping. I can see happiness now. But will she wake up? Later, he sat on the chair by her side, admiring her beautiful face, trying to give her support. He took her hand and held it, softly. Naruto drew circles on her skin with his finger. It was a sign of nervousness, but also an attempt to give her comfort, and draw in hers. I know now. I do. So I'll tell you when you wake up. Good night, Hinata. Naruto had fallen asleep again. He had forgotten to take care of himself, because of his worry. Sitting by her side, without sleeping or eating, took a lot out of him. He decided to leave her for a little while, getting some fresh air and a bite to eat. She was not going anywhere, anyway. And he would positively be back. He yawned loudly, before glancing at her resting form. I'll be back soon, Hinata. He told her, even though she could not hear him. And even though she was asleep, she radiated a gentle aura that soothed his soul. He went outside and was welcomed by a bright sunlight. It bathed him generously, giving him warmth immediately. The wind was blowing softly. It was no longer cold or gray. What had happened to the eternal grayness that seemed to cover the sky? Its thickness was finally broken by the garish sun. It was about time, Naruto thought, as he stepped forward. He would have loved to see the development. It seemed almost unbelievable. Naruto walked through the town, and instantly spotted his favorite place to eat. It was peaceful as he entered and greeted the old man. He ordered some ramen, and as he waited impatiently, he stared at the seat next to him. It was empty, and someone should have been in it. Naruto missed her presence. No matter what Hinata did, whether it was blushing, smiling, or dropping her glass due to her nervousness, she was so beautiful. And she calmed him. Now, he felt uneasiness expand within him. He frowned. Naruto ate quickly. He remembered Hinata's concern when he was not eating. Yes, it mattered. He did not want to be a source of worry to her anymore. He wanted to reassure her, calm her, just like she had done for him. From now on, he decided. Naruto paid, before stepping out into the bright light. The weather was uplifting, but it had little effect on Naruto. He walked through the streets with his head down, thinking only of Hinata. It was strange, he thought. It was only when she was in real danger that his feelings for her awakened. He knew though, that they had always been there, deep down inside. He had just not realized. He had loved her from the start. From the day she was willing to heal him, despite her own feelings getting hurt, till now. He just needed his eyes to be opened. They were now. And his feelings for her now were so huge, he could not understand it nor describe it. Naruto sighed. Wake up, Hinata. He wanted to reach out to her. Naruto spotted a boy, holding a girl's hand. It reminded him of something. It was a few days after he said he would try with her. They walked down the street. It was completely deserted, but that was fine, since they had each other. Everything was alright, it seemed. Suddenly though, rain was born and began to fall harshly, surprising Naruto. Shit. Let's find some shelter. He said, taking her hand and beginning to run. And he felt Hinata shiver, as their fingers intertwined. Naruto looked back at her, and she gave him a small smile. It's the first time, holding your hand like this, she said, and her smile blossomed. He could not resist smiling back at her. It was such a sweet thought. She blushed and squeezed his hand. Naruto quickened his pace, before spotting a small roof protruding from the silver building. They hurried under it. He leaned against the wall, releasing Hinata's hand gently. She looked worriedly at the heavens. They were both soaking wet. Naruto's golden tresses were flattened, almost covering his eyes. All of a sudden, lightning roared and lit up the dark sky for a brief moment. It was very loud and echoed through the village. Hinata jumped with fright, pressing herself against Naruto and grasping his hand. She buried her face in his shirt and her other hand was resting against his heart. Hinata seemed to be the type to dislike storms. He felt her breathe and shiver against him. Hinata slowly looked up at him, and it was as if she only realized then what she had done. He was stuck in her gentle gaze, and it was drawing him in. Automatically, as if it were the most natural thing to do, he placed his arms around her, forming a tight embrace. For once, his movements were not restricted. She felt protected, and he felt calm. Despite her meek appearance, she was stronger than that. Behind her frailty, lied a huge strength. Don't worry, Hinata, it's only a stupid storm, he said, soothingly. She felt her cheeks burn. He placed a shivering finger under her chin, and suddenly, his lips were against hers. It was only them and the cold rain, and this moment was sealed with a warm kiss. Her lips were soft and gentle, causing him to relax, not be stiff. He stroked her cheek, and the feelings that swirled within him were indescribable. He would never forget that moment. It was the first time he truly only saw Hinata. Which was why he was thinking about it now. He realized that all the moments they had shared, all the experiences, opened up his locked heart. That is why he loved her, because they had something special. She had that effect on him, which he needed more than anything. He needed her. Time to get back to her. And he ran, so fast, that people stopped and stared. He did not notice though, because they diminished around him. He could only see Hinata. You'll wake up, right? He abruptly opened up the door, and was shocked to see the bed empty. The sheets were messy, and he could not feel her aura anywhere. He gasped, before turning around and running through the hallways, searching for her face. He was forgetting to breathe, because he did not know if he should be happy or worried. Where did she go? She was probably still upset, and waking up to no one was hard. He knew that. He found Tsunade wandering through the hall, an irritated look plastered on her face. Granny, have you seen Hinata? He asked, urgently. Tsunade blinked. Is she not in her room? She asked, confused. Naruto shook his head vigorously. No, she's not there anymore. He said, worried. I'll tell the staff. She can't be too far away. She suggested, and Naruto nodded, before bursting into a hasty dash. He was determined, azure eyes scanning the area. Where did you go? He had been everywhere. He was quite certain of that. He was breathing heavily, but he did not care. Naruto had to find her. And then he realized that maybe she was there, reaching for the sky, and breathing in the fresh and soothing air. He could not dismiss that feeling, and decided to listen to it. He ran up to the roof. And like he predicted, she was standing there, her back facing him. Her long raven hair broke the blueness that seemed to surround her. It was a captivating contrast. Strands blew gently in the wind, as she slowly turned around with wide lavender eyes. They stood there, staring at each other. It felt almost surreal. And the wind broke him out of his trance. He could not believe that Hinata was fine, standing in front of him with eyes that were so alive. Her aura quickly bathed him with comfort. He could not breathe for a moment, as realization hit him. You know what you feel. Hinata, he said, softly, because his voice was lost due to the emotions he was feeling. They were so strong. Are you alright? You really overdid it, he said, with a smile. And she seemed to react to that. I'm sorry, Naruto, I did not mean to worry you, she admitted, and it was so nice to hear her speak. You really scared me. I thought you were, he began, but could not finish. Hinata gently cut in. I won't go anywhere, Naruto, she said, reassuringly. Her words held certainty. His worry lowered at that moment, and he was reminded of his discovered feelings. Naruto took a few steps closer, so that he could face her properly, stare into her bottomless eyes that gave him hope. While you were gone, I thought a lot. I was never entirely sure, until I found out what had happened to you. Then I realized, he explained, exhaling a deep breath. She looked at him with hopeful eyes. Her heart began to skip beats when he was so close. Inside, I knew. I want to be with you, Hinata, he said. Naruto was shaking because of his emotions. He put a hand on her cheek. He was finally pouring out his feelings to her, which she deserved more than anything. She was apparently shocked by his confession and touch, but she immediately felt warm. A feeling she had missed. But she wondered, because Naruto had always been unsure. Why, Naruto? She asked, gently. Hinata was so surprised, that she found it hard let the words sink in. He brushed a strand away from her face with affection. His fingertips made her shiver. Why? Because you are you. You saved me, Hinata. No matter how much I hurt you, you stood by me. He whispered, his eyes glowing appreciatively. She could not move for a moment. You calm me down just by smiling or blushing. I can't explain it. I just know that. He stopped slowly. Naruto leaned in closer, and he brushed her cheek with his lips, kissing her gently. He gently moved his lips to hers, and their mouths were locked, strongly. It had been so long. She felt all his emotions streaming through, and she let them sink in. Hinata allowed her walls to fall down and brought her hands up to his cheeks, holding them tenderly. She did not know how long they stood there, consuming each other's presence, aura, closeness. When Naruto finally released the kiss, he looked at her strongly. His eyes held a truth. I love you, Hinata, he said, happily. And he smiled, so warmly. It was his true, signature smile, which had been missing for so long. She was stunned. He had expected her to react this way. To reach her, which he finally could do, he placed his hands on top of hers. They were still cradling his face. Do you understand now, Hinata? He asked. Naruto placed his forehead on hers. Finally, the silence broke. I understand, she said lowly, with a small smile. Hinata tried to tell him how she felt, but he took away her voice. She was struck. But he knew already, so well. And he showed her, by taking her hand, their fingers unconsciously interlacing with each other. A memory streamed through her body by his touch. That time in the rain. This is the first time. Me holding your hand like this. In the sun, he said, because every time they had held hands, they were caged in grayness. It had been raining, or foggy. There was almost always an uncertainty. But not anymore. Not anymore. Naruto was determined to look after Hinata. To repay her for all she had done for him. She obliged quietly, her shyness on display. He smiled as he took her hand. Naruto noticed that Hinata was not fully convinced, despite their previous conversation. She was happy, and smiling, but there was still a small hesitation in her movements, her aura. He did not blame her. After all, he had put her through a lot. But he would prove it to her, tonight. She did not want to go home. Hinata wanted to stay with Naruto, and he was happy to have her. They went over to his place, and it did not give him a lonely feeling. Can I get you anything? He asked her as she sat down on his bed. She gave him a weak smile, and shook her head. I'm fine, Naruto, she said. He slid down next to her and took her hand. He squeezed it lightly, trying to give her some comfort. Because he noticed the weak distress in her eyes. What's the matter, Hinata? He asked, seriously. She unleashed a small noise of uncertainty, which clarified his worry. She had definitely not grasped his previous confession. She was evasive, trying to be strong, but he saw right through her. Hinata, he said softly, leaning over so he could look into her eyes. She was looking down, but finally shifted her gaze upwards, meeting his blue orbs. He waited for her. I'm not a replacement, am I? She asked, softly. Naruto was not shocked, but he felt his heart leap lightly. She had more to say, he knew, so he waited. I remember you telling me that I gave you the same feeling as Sakura did. I don't want that. I want to make you feel something unique, something that is only mine. I am so afraid that you'll only see me as. She could not continue, because the tears diminished her voice. She was surprised to see a look of understanding on Naruto's face. She looked down again. Hinata, did you forget what I told you on the roof? You are not a replacement, or Sakura. It's only you. What can I do to make you believe me? He asked her, caringly. She remained silent, and he continued, determined to make her understand. There's only one you, and that's what I have fallen for. He ended it with that, and she finally looked into his eyes, the tears reducing. He laughed slightly, wiping some away with an uplifting smile. Slowly, he placed a hand on the back of her head and leaned in to capture her lips. It was a soft and slow kiss, but consisted of so many emotions, especially from Hinata. The kiss gradually grew faster and stronger, and Hinata was not hesitating anymore. He held her cheek, tenderly stroking it with his thumb. This time, his touch told her silently that he cared. It streamed through him, entering her body. Their lips parted ways, and they exchanged breaths instead, and profound gazes. Neither of them knew how it had actually happened, but it felt right, as he mimicked her movements, and gently sank down into the bed with her. The kisses were even stronger now on her lips and neck. The white covers sealed their moment of peace and intimacy, not even letting in the light from the window. It was only Naruto and Hinata now. He was leaning over her, drawing a line with kisses. He caressed her upper body with gentleness, and he looked into her eyes as he went inside of her, making sure that she was all right. She nodded, wanting him to continue. Naruto smiled warmly, stroking her cheek and ebony hair. Light moans came from her mouth, as he slowly proceeded. He was generous and gentle, and Hinata could feel his chakra streaming through her body. Hinata closed her eyes tightly and blushed, trying to capture this moment and engrave it in her heart. It was overwhelming. Are you okay, Hinata? He asked her, cradling her face. She responded with a strong kiss, touching his neck with her fingers, before they glided down his shoulders. Affirmed, his hands traveled softly up and down her body. They let their walls crumble. This moment meant so much to both of them. Naruto kissed her slim neck, and she leaned her head back, before shifting and looking deeply into his eyes that had captured her favorite thing, the sky. He got lost in hers, and they continued to stare at each other as he moved his lips to caress hers. Their foreheads touched. His arm slid down to hers, and their hands met. Their fingers automatically intertwined, holding each other tightly as Naruto gave her subsequent kisses. Their body was one, and they consumed each other's feelings and emotions, each other, for a long time. Later, he held her, so tightly, but carefully. She was half asleep, but when she felt his grip tighten slightly around her, she opened her eyes and stared into his. They were laying on their sides, facing each other, her body close to his. Her head had been buried in his warm chest that was breathing steadily, arms around each other. I'll never let you go again, he said, smiling warmly. She returned the smile and stroked his golden locks tenderly. She noticed that his eyelids were getting heavier. He had more to say though. You won't go anywhere, right? He asked her, with a deep voice. Hinata placed a soft hand on his cheek, to amplify her words. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere, she whispered into his ear. And that was all Naruto needed to hear to finally let rest overtake him. They both fell asleep, feeling protected, safe, and warm. And they both had pleasant dreams. Hinata slowly opened her eyes against the world. She turned over a bit, and met a hand. She grasped it and felt the safety that came with it. It was his hand, Naruto's. They melted together. It was different this time. There was no uncertainty between them. They had been falling, but they had finally managed to land on secure ground. They had always been serious, but now, the pieces were finally complete. No more cracks or holes. Hinata smiled at the thought. She absorbed Naruto's presence as she snuggled closer to him. He was right beside her, breathing steadily and easily. She felt a hand caress her head gently, before a kiss was planted solidly on it. No more tears. She was happy. Naruto walked slowly through the streets. Others passed him faster than a cannonball. That is how it sometimes felt to him. As usual, he was not entirely orientated. There were so many people, filling up the streets entirely. But, no matter how many people blocked his view, he could always spot her. She stood out from the crowd. He could not explain exactly why he would automatically see her. His eyes found her. She stood by a corner, hair blowing entrancingly in the wind. It felt like time stopped, as their different eyes met. Slow motion, flying by in seconds. And then, reality came back as she smiled sweetly, with a small blush on her face. People continued to pass them, uncaringly, but their eyes were only fixed on each other. Even if a random person blocked her view for a second, she was still visible to him. They approached each other, and he smiled his signature smile at her, real and bright. He gently grasped her hand, before pulling her into a strong, yet gentle embrace. The moment she was in his arms, everything felt right. And he knew. They would always find each other. That was their personal law of physics. She was like metal, and he was a magnet. He laughed at the thought, but also appreciated it immensely. He had never felt that way with Sakura. He always had to look for her. Strive for her. With Hinata, she was just always there, even if they were apart. That was the sharp difference between Sakura and Hinata. It was very strange the way he found out, he suddenly recalled. Hinata faced Naruto with worried eyes. What's the matter, Hinata? He asked, his tone framed with concern. There were tears welling up in her eyes, which surprised him, because she had not cried since forever. For the first time in ages, they were caught in a cage of grayness. It was not even raining. Naruto. She began, but her little voice lost its strength. He took a step forward and carefully placed his hands on her arms, so that their eyes directly intertwined with each other. She looked down, insecurely, breaking their lock. When you were vulnerable, I took advantage of you. I'm sorry, she whispered. It was all too fast for Naruto to register in his mind. Seeing his reaction, she abruptly broke away from his firm hold. What do you mean? He asked, gently, but she somehow managed to interpret it differently. The only reply he received was a low noise of regret. She shook her head. I don't deserve you, she said. So that was what she meant. It all fell down, and she ran. He was penetrated, and could not move. It was such an unfamiliar feeling, that it took time to sink in. She's feeling insecure. When he finally felt something click within him, he managed to turn around. The door was wide open. He ran over and searched into the mild darkness of the night. He didn't see her. Man, she was fast. Hinata, he called, distressed. The circumstances were twisted, misunderstood and wrong. As he ran down the lightless road, at first, he sensed nothing, could not feel her. He stopped, lowered his head, and firmly closed his eyes. Calm down, Naruto. Find her. Opening them, he felt their souls colliding. She was all around her. He could feel her. He ran as fast as he could, drawing in her aura. As he presumed, he found her. Somehow, probably due to fatigue, she was lying on the ground. She was looking at him, lavender eyes wide. They were filled with surprise. He simply walked over to her and rested on his knees, looking down at her with no anger, just a softness that surfaced through the strong blueness. What are you doing, Hinata? He asked, seriously, yet his tone was surprisingly light. She looked away, partially regretting her previous behavior. Naruto could see that something, or rather, someone had triggered her words. It was weighing her down. Was it Sasuke or Ino this time? He asked, knowingly. Hinata finally met his soft gaze. She spoke the truth. She said, barely audible. You know that is wrong. He countered, strongly. I just sometimes feel like I'm dreaming, because it is too good to be true. What we have. That I have you, she said, softly. Naruto felt a strange warmth flow through him. It was gratitude, but it was fused with understanding. That's how I feel too, sometimes. He said, grabbing Hinata's attention with a small gasp. He came closer where she was lying and gently took her in his arms. His embrace was strong. It was filled with certainty. I was confused when you found me. I thought I was going to. But you took what was left of me, and made me whole again. He admitted. Before she could say anything, he leaned in and his lips were one with hers. At first, he could feel a slight shock and hesitation. But then, it converted into an acceptance, an appreciation, warm and true. Strong and floating emotions streamed through her kiss. When she placed a hand on his arm, he felt her enter him, crawling underneath his skin. He carried her back, and when they arrived at his home, she had already fallen asleep. He looked down at her, admiringly, appreciatively. He placed her on the bed, kissing her forehead. So delicate, yet so strong. And she saved his life. That is how he found her. After that episode, he could always feel her, find her. No matter what. The memory lingered in his mind as they walked back to his place. He smiled down at her, holding hands. Not only had she healed him, but she had helped him readopt his old ways. Naruto was happy, positive, and smiling boyishly again. And he had a reason to. He had been dying inside, but she had given him life again. He had been running, but she had given him a reason to stand still. It took some time for her to grasp that, to realize the genuine feelings he had for her, but once she did, she had nothing to be afraid of. She was so modest, that she failed to believe in the strength she possessed. Her confidence was never sky high. At times, it brought her down. However, Naruto could always see that hidden strength, in her smile, in everything. It was never an issue for him to see her sadness shine through sometimes. After all, she had done so much for him, that it was only natural for him to help her. Help her realize that he did deserve her, and that she deserved him, not that he was anything special, really. She had loved him, even when he could not see into his own heart. He thanked her every day, almost, for her presence and that little strength that made him smile all over inside. That is why it was natural for him to watch over her. When they got back home, she literally threw herself in bed, drained from a hard night. She had overexerted her body after a enduring mission. He had to watch over her on a night like this, like many other nights, and make sure she would be alright. He wanted to. He smiled again, brushing away her ebony bangs and kissing her forehead tenderly. "Good night, Hinata," he whispered into her ear, as he lay down next to her. "I'll look after you," he said, before closing his own eyes and letting sleep grasp him. As expected, morning came. The weather was fairly warmer, finally acting like spring. The blossoms were blooming, outdoing the blue sky dominantly. Hinata slowly opened her eyes, feeling the sun bath her face through the window. "Naruto," she whispered, before turning around, unable to feel any hand or elbow. She was quite surprised when she turned over and met familiar face staring happily at her. It was a pleasant surprise though. "Good morning, Hinata-sama," he said, cheerfully. She blinked several times in surprise, before blushing madly. "Good morning, Naruto," she whispered back, with a small, yet warm smile displayed on her face. He was kneeling down by the bedside, looking at her, watching over her. She was questioning that in her mind. Naruto gave her an admirable smile. With her messy morning hair and her sweet eyes, she looked so beautiful. "How are you feeling?" he asked, with a happy tone. Hinata sat up a bit, the covers curled around her like a cocoon. Although he was acting fairly normal, something was not right. He was either very nervous, or had done something wrong, and was trying to avoid being caught. She recognized that attitude from her youth. "What are you up to?" she asked, finding the situation amusing. She noticed how he shifted determinedly. Suddenly, his face softened, and his expression grew more serious. "What the hell, why are you so nervous?" "Hinata," he whispered, leaning closer towards her. He had to raise his head towards her, since he was sitting on the floor, her on the bed, leaning over the edge looking down at him. She stared at him deeply, faces inches from each other, before their lips naturally met, becoming one and caressing each other. They just disappeared into each other for a brief moment, relishing the happiness portrayed there. He slowly let go, his eyes still glued to hers. "I see you," he said. She felt his breath on her face, and the words sunk in slowly. "What do you mean?" she asked, giggling slightly, but she regained her seriousness as she saw the expression on Naruto's face harden. "I see you in my future," he whispered. He gently pulled away and dug into his pocket, calmly. He brought his hand up and presented her a little box, adorned with black silk. Like her hair. Her eyes widened considerably as she realized what he was doing. She was stunned. There was no other word to describe her still and unresponsive emotions. He shifted into a kneeling position, staring into her lavender eyes with determination and reassurance this time. The nervousness was gone. "I love you. Will you marry me?" he asked, softly. Apart from his hard face, his eyes were soft, shining with excitement. She remained still, as he opened the box and revealed a silver ring, with a diamond that matched her eyes protruding dominantly. It was so beautiful, that it made her heart skip a beat. No words came from her mouth, as she let the moment sink in, slowly. Her dream was coming true. "Hinata," He asked, carefully, after not receiving any reply. Yes, she whispered, almost inaudibly. A smile finally blossomed on his face, and he leaned in a little closer. Yes, he repeated, with a tone woven with relief. Suddenly, her whole face lit up, tears dancing slowly down her cheeks. They were for once tears of happiness. Her smile was firm and warm. Yes, she said, nodding her head more times than necessary and jumping frivolously into his arms. They fell onto the floor, her on top of him, and she wrapped her arms around him and hugged him so tightly. She felt him stroke her back. They both laughed together. They shared so much. At that moment, a kiss, a smile to each other, another kiss, an exchange of deep stares, all wrapped in thick layers of sheer happiness and adoration. The sun broke through the clouds again and poured light into the room, over them, as they continued to hold each other tightly. She whispered, I see you too. Forever. They really were in the sun. The end.